So I woke up this morning to a metric ton of notifications, all kind of really asking for my opinion. Asmongold apparently went and talked about the great Final Fantasy XIV crash out that has been unfolding over the last couple of weeks. Now, I don't make it a priority to cover what's going on in Final Fantasy XIV, but because again, when asked, I feel like you guys want to hear my opinion. So hopefully that's why you're here and you're not hopefully hate watching. But if you are, I love you regardless. We're going to talk about it because this is something I think is deeply, deeply important. Because for those of you who don't know, if you're just kind of checking out this video and you don't know what's going on in Final Fantasy XIV, for the longest time, the powers that be, the metrics of feedback have all been controlled by what I've labeled as the Final Fantasy XIV Defense Force or cult. You have these power players at play that have long been gatekeeping the game and the feedback for various political reasons. And it's kind of their comeuppance. Like, this is essentially kind of a retribution or, some kind of pushback against everything that they've said in the past. And that's why, in and of itself, this going as wide as it has with Asmongold, I think is deeply important. But let's get into it. So Zika Ja writes, Asmongold lays it down to the Square Enix lore consultant Catherine Sinwar, known for the heart and soul of Final Fantasy XIV, John Trail for her unprofessional and outspoken political divisive conduct on social media. Now, what this is in reference to is that apparently she over on Blue Sky retweeted a post talking about purging people out of the social life. Now, a lot of people can take that political tone and extrapolate a real violent end, or essentially just the idea that these people shouldn't be allowed to speak. We should silence our dissenters. And just so that I make sure that I represent what they are promoting here with accuracy, let's just dive into what Kate reposted. From Michael, who says, anyway, the choice American faces going forward is to live in the Confederacy or do Reconstruction for real and purge those MFers from all public life. And there isn't any real in between. Also going on to repost another one from Tink, who says, my personal opinion is that everyone should be alarmist about everything the conservative movement is saying and planning and attempting right now. Be extremely alarmist about fascism, be very alarmed about white Christian nationalism. It is absolutely appropriate reaction. And this got Todd talking, and he shares this, and this was enough to get him quote unquote canceled from the Final Fantasy XIV community. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But Todd writes, this type of rhetoric being amplified by an employee at Square Enix is grossly unprofessional, divisive, and downright evil. Wishing a group of people to be purged. Do you want to alienate your customer base? Very disturbing coming from the heart and soul of Dawn Trail. Say what you want about me, but this crap needs to stop. It's wrong and it's hateful. People have been fired for less, and this is what you support. Not everyone who has a different worldview is an extreme case. You are scaring away the normies and your potential customers. And so when we think about this, is that it's perfectly fine to have these opinions. And I especially am all for people being able to share whatever both crap opinions or great opinions that they have, right? Because I think and believe in free speech. However, when you are the public face of a company, when you are kind of a representative and you're promoting these kind of ideas, you are negatively impacting also all those others that you're working with, everybody who's hardworking. The world doesn't agree. And I think we've seen this kind of this pushback from this groupthink that has dominated and dominates Final Fantasy XIV specifically. There is kind of a culture there. I've talked about this numerous times. I've railed against it numerous times, and I stand by it. You know, these people tend to hate women greatly. They absolutely hate Christians with a deep passion, and that call out to Christian nationalism. Okay, the Western culture was built by Christianity. Christianity is what separate, like if we lose, right, there's nobody going to be there to stand against getting you thrown off a building. Like, and that is the harsh reality. And so essentially standing against and rooting against Christianity, I think is rooting for your own destruction, but you're welcome to have a different opinion. That all being said, is we should, and we want to be back into a spot where we can disagree and it's perfectly fine. But there is still this kind of holdover to the fact of this virtue signal, this aspect that exists within these kind of communities that is this purity test. And if you agree with them 9 out of 10 times, you're still an enemy. You have to be absolutely on lock and step with whatever the message is for the day. And it's truly, truly tragic. And this was enough to get this going. So I'm going to highlight this post from Mr. Happy, who's highlighting a post from Spoofy, who's virtue signaling that Llamatodd is now blocked. Spoofy writes, "We don't F with hate here. Peace. Todd was someone I considered a friend and a teammate, but I feel a lot of guilt that I never realized how deeply our values don't align." This is such a BS line. They absolutely F with hate all the time. If you've ever experienced the wrath of the Final Fantasy XIV cult, you know firsthand how hateful these MFers are. And it's ironic, and they think themselves the good guy. Like, they don't take the lessons of Final Fantasy XIV. They don't take the lessons of Final Fantasy, these extremist worldviews, this cult mindset, this clique mindset. It's truly tragic. And they have put themselves there. They believe themselves to be the hero, but they are the villains of this story. Most of us just want to get back to, hey, it's just about the games. We're just having fun playing games. You can have different opinions. It's all good. Everybody has opinions and they all stink. As my dad would say, like, opinions are like buttholes, you know, in that regards. Like, we all got them. They all stink. But this level of virtue signaling is absolutely expected. So I'm not surprised, but at the same time, disappointing. Now, Mr. Happy retweets this. He says, "I unfollowed after everything went on recently. Like I said, it was genuinely painful seeing anything coming out of his socials that I don't want to associate with him anymore." Now, I don't blame Mr. Happy. I said as much. He knows who butters his bread. His livelihood is based off of him, talking to his community. The virtue signaling, though, is just absolutely atrocious. I do not think it's going to work out for him in the long run. It does continue to highlight that Final Fantasy XIV's community, especially within certain aspects of the content creation side of it, has a deep, deep lack of integrity. And it's to the point where, like, I don't trust anything y'all say, because your livelihood is completely based off of this. And the game it's got to put a lot of pressure on them too, because the game is an absolute decline. It seems like the only content that people want to see right now is negative content, is a rant content, because they're all sharing in these expressions. And all of this was completely avoidable. I railed about this and I was memed about this for years, and now so many people have returned to tell me, like, I understand what you were worried about and how this essentially kind of plays out. And it isn't rocket science. I'm not some kind of genius who's the one who could figure it out. You just look at human psychology, you look at the trajectory of the game, and you look at some of the problems that are being introduced developmentally wise. And so as a developer, I was able to apply that to extrapolate that eventually we were going to get here. I'm early because I honestly think, hey, this can be avoided. We like, these are what we need to advocate for. And yet we didn't. So it'll be interesting to see if Final Fantasy XIV can recover. I don't think, if anybody believes that it's going to recover to the heights of what it was within Shadowbringers, like, there's going to have to be like miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle, all in succession, for something like that to happen again. And I say miracle not in the context of COVID. I'm talking about in the context of building back that trust, really delivering it. But the root of the issue is that they're asking so much of a new player to step into their game. And I think, honestly, their best bet is going to be what happens with this mobile version of the game. I know I, for one, with a lack of subscription, might actually want to check it out. And the other thing you have going on at the same time as all this, you have Final Fantasy XIV, Square Enix issuing takedowns of apparently these mods, which can absolutely be used for porn, and that's essentially one of the biggest aspects of the community. So seeing that kind of reaction, it's going to be neat to see what the overall fallout is. Now, I don't have a lot of thoughts on that. The only mod I ever used back in the day was the parsing mod, because my wife wanted me to parse her so that she could get an idea of where she was. This is before the community bullied her out of the game itself. So thank y'all for that. I guess, we're having fun playing other games. So she's actually thinking about joining me back in Final Fantasy XI. So that's a huge win. So all this is to being said is that I don't care what you believe. I don't care your political opinion. I don't care who you voted for. You're always going to be welcome here. I'm not, and I like, when it comes down to it, like, my general rule and what I've seen, and this is why I get so frustrated by all this and why I feel like it's just so fake at the end of the day, is that I don't unfollow, I don't block, I don't kick people out for not being in alignment with my values. I think that in and of itself, like, what they're doing here is a form of religious extremism that should be called out, and they should be, shamed for it, because that's what it is. This Puritan test that these Puritans, for lack of a better term, are using and abusing in this case. everybody with every opinion is always welcome, and we can have a respectful discussion. Sometimes things get heated, and it's okay to be adults and step away from these kind of things. And I get nobody owes me a follow. I'm not going to kick you out. What I see is a lot of people opting out. I've been blocked. I've been, my cancellations all have been quiet. Like, they don't make a big deal out of it. They just send me horrible messages, and that's the end of those relationships. And I pray for them every day. These people I love greatly. I love them enough to tell them the truth, and I think that's what we're seeing more and more of. So the more people they kick out of their clique, honestly, the better, because at some point you're going to realize it's so much better over here actually being a good human being, living by your actions and not having to fake your words for views. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I know that's pretty pretty direct. I really appreciate you hanging out with me for this. Honestly, I do mean it. Like, one of the things I like to focus in here is men's mental health. The internet is a place where mental health is kind of the product, like in that regards, where we're going to suffer and struggle. And the thing is, I always want you to know you're never alone. You are never alone. Any dark thoughts, any thoughts in those regards that you're thinking of, those are lies, right? The world is actually better off for having you in it. And sometimes that means that there's going to have to be some work and some suffering. The fact is that suffering makes you and me more alike. It makes us more human. It makes us easier and better to understand, because who here has not suffered? I know I have. I know you have. But we can use that suffering to refine us, not define us. Think about that simple shift, and then let's get to work and hopefully make this world and ourselves better for it. Anyway, thank you guys again. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.
They said, boy, she's done, but I just smiled instead, 'cause this world keeps on